You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai. We understand from our sources in the government that very soon what you're likely to see is the government of India communicate with the Janta, communicate with the public first on GOI, a Desi alternative of Twitter. We are being told that senior members of the government, be it ministers, ministers of state, bureaucrats, departments, PSUs, all are likely to first share updates on GOI and then maybe 1 to 3 hours later on Twitter. The other option also is you first keep the Janta updated on GOI, the homegrown app, and then maybe copy paste that link on Twitter. With that, you'll get more traction also on GOI. That seems to be the idea. In recent times, you've seen a big standoff between the government and Twitter, with the government being very, very upset about a trending hashtag around farmers' genocide. It resulted in the government identifying nearly 1,100 Twitter handles and accounts which the government believed was spreading misinformation and inciting violence. It found that many of these also had links with those in Pakistan and being soft on Khalistan. We saw a standoff between the government and Twitter on that. And so around that time, we're told the government felt it's time to have a strong alternative to Twitter. And that, of course, is GOI. GOI, a homegrown app that in fact won the Atmanirbhar App Challenge last year. We're also being told by our sources that in the days to come, you will start seeing parliamentarians, senior members of this government sign on GOI. Once the user base is more, once there is more traction, the Prime Minister is also expected to log in. Can GOI be a realistically be a strong alternative to Twitter? That's a conversation I'm going to be having in this segment of Startup Central. But before that, here's a special story put together by my colleague Dimple Sharma. The government's clarion call is Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the government now wants to make GOI its first port of communication with the public. Can it be a strong alternative to Twitter? Remember, with Twitter, you get a global audience. The same Prime Minister gets to engage with heads of states of other countries. But can it be a strong enough alternative? I'm going to be discussing this with one of the most respected voices that we have in the ecosystem, Dr. Mohan Das Pai. It's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thanks so much for being a part of Startup Central. You know, we've heard a war of words. This is like a war of birds. But, you know, that's me just trying to be punning and all of that and being flippant. But Mohan Das Pai, do you think it is actually feasible for GOI to become a strong alternative?
Absolutely. Because, Coup is technologically very good, started by Indian entrepreneurs and great techies, registered in India. It is there in 8 Indian languages, so it can address maybe out of the 1.38 billion people, maybe 600, 700 million people. Hope they come out in other Indian languages so that all Indian languages, major Indian languages are on Coup, so that people can get feeds and microblogging in their own country. And the government of a country should also communicate to the people of this country in their own languages, including English. And I do hope the people of this country, including the Lutyens media from Delhi, also come on that. Because what India requires is a platform registered in India, created by Indian entrepreneurs for Indians, subject to the laws of India. Twitter did a very bad thing in India and other countries. He shut down political voices in the United States and took sides, which is a no, 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 because you're going to have legislation soon in the United States, started by Democrats, to make sure that everybody gets equal access, because you can't have a private company decide what is good for people, what is bad for people politically. In India, too, Twitter, I think, it stood up against the government of India wrongly when the government, under the law, asked them to shut down 1,100 sites. If Twitter did not agree, they could go to court. Anybody can go to court. But to be defiant against a government which is enforcing the laws of this country, I think was very, very wrong. And it's very good that the government has taken it very seriously and gone with a startup which won an open award where all startups in India were asked to come and compete, and Coup won some time ago, not now, some time ago. And Coup has done well. So I'm sure Coup can take on Twitter for India and become the de facto, microblogging site for all Indians. There's nothing preventing them from doing it. They're great techies. They have the capacity to do it. They have the cloud technology to scale up, to a very, very large way. They're working with, cloud technology players in India. So I'm very, very happy that is happening in this country. We need our own microblogging site. Please remember, tomorrow a company registered outside India can shut off anybody. And we had a lot of people in this country. We are hoping that Coup will take sides in the Indian politics, shut off what they don't like, because they can put pressure, like some American puts pressure on Twitter during the elections. They were salivating in the mouth. Now we have an open alternative where all Indians can go, and they'll be subject to the laws of the land. That is what is important.
But my point also is that a sovereign and a government will also need to interact with a global audience. And we have seen that on Twitter, right? So given that foreign policy, all of that, how do you communicate with the NRIs? All of those problems also have to be dealt with.
No, government should be on Twitter and Coup and give preference to Coup. Like you said earlier, come first on Coup and then go on Twitter too. Why shut off a global voice? We shouldn't shut off a global voice. We should be open to all global voices on our terms, but prefer our local players so they can address everybody else. That should be the government policy. Nobody is saying that Twitter should be shut down in this country. Twitter should not be shut down in this country. It's a global player, a global platform. All of us should be on Twitter. All of us should be on Coup, be across both. But the government of the country should support, any government of the country should support a local player who is subject to the laws of this country made by parliament. Today it could be the NDA government, tomorrow it could be some other government, but the fact remains Coup is an Indian company registered in India, subject to the laws of India, run by Indians, controlled by Indians, and that is something that all of us as Indians should promote. But we should also be on Twitter. It's important to be on Twitter because Twitter will address the global audience. Let's do both.
Right. But Mohandas Pai, in recent times, what we've also seen was this massive push for Signal. A lot of people said we're going to use Signal and we're not going to use WhatsApp. But that has fizzled out, right? It was very similar examples that were being highlighted about why Signal is better than WhatsApp, all of that. This time round, if an app like Coup has to maintain the momentum, has to make sure that it can always be scaled up, what are the lessons it can learn from the recent times of WhatsApp and Signal?
You see, Signal is picking up. It's going to take time for people to change their habits because, WhatsApp is a very entrenched app that we have in this country, right? It's going to take time for people to use Signal too. For example, I'm on WhatsApp. I'm on Signal. I'm mostly on WhatsApp. I'm going on Signal, trying to do. The mind share is very less. But please remember, the difference between Coup and Twitter is Coup is in 8 Indian languages. And people in those languages are exclusively on Ku, and that is going to grow for the 1 billion people of this country, out of which I think 600 million, 700 million may have been addressed. English is an additional language. So those people who tweet or Ku in English will be on both platforms. And the government of this country has now got an opportunity to address people of this country in their own languages. Instead of going on Twitter and doing Hindi and other languages, here, by using a tool, the same tweet that you put on English can reach others who are there in other Indian languages too. That is an unbeatable advantage that Ku has, which Twitter doesn't have. Because for that, you have to invest a lot of money. You got to maintain a lot of things. And that's a little bit difficult because I think, it'll take some time. So I think Ku will grow extremely fast. The key thing is Ku is investing heavily in creating growth, is an open platform. So I think both will prosper. I don't see why Ku should not grow at his own pace. Before, the government came on Ku, remember, on the Indian languages, they're growing pretty rapidly. English was also there. And what happened with Twitter, trying to take a stand against government and government deciding they're not going to be blackmailed by global monopoly. They're going on to Twitter, government minister going on Twitter. The English language tweet is picked up. But today, the majority is still in Indian languages. Let's give credit to Ku.
Mohandas Pai, today you have Ku, which is a microblogging site. A lot of things worked for Ku. It's only 10 months old. Like they say, there's always a golden luck. So, the timing is also turned out to be very good for Ku. But going forward, it may not be that Ku is the only homegrown, fully controlled by Indian microblogging site. You could have more that will come up in many other languages. You know how many languages we have in the country. In that position, then, how is a center supposed to choose which microblogging site? How can it work then? Right now, you only have one, but maybe you'll see mushrooming of many more.
Good point. I like your point because, what you're essentially saying is open up the market, don't have monopolies, and have many more players. Now, Ku won the competition in Atmanirbhar Bharat where they won for all India against everybody else. Now, in future, there could be other Indian brands to microblogging site which could come up. After some time, maybe the government will have another competition. And those who make it the top 2 or 3, government will say, we're going to support you. We're going to use it for a communication. That's fine. That's fine. So we are not dependent upon one global player. That is big news. We should never depend on one single global player. Like you gave out the exclusive today of the the space of all the mapping thing, spatial data being opened up in this country. You did the first one, right? You did the first tweet or whatever it is, our first exclusive. That's a great thing too. Why should you depend on global maps? Doesn't mean that only Map My India will be exclusive. No, there'll be other players too. So let other players too come in later. Let the government decide how they're going to do that, and that's fine, right? Let the best player win. Let there be 2 or 3 apps which all Indians use. For example, after we blocked TikTok, some 4 or 5 Indian short video has come on, Chingari, Mitro and others. And over a period of time, some of them will do extremely well. Josh has come up. They got a lot of money. So we are seeing a lot more, and people have a choice. And then people will decide for what particular work they want to use what. So that's better than being controlled by the Chinese, right? I think there's a very good news. We'll have a much more open system. But the important thing is we don't want a digital monopoly. We want the digital companies to be subject to regulations governed by the laws of India and the government. And that can only happen if they're registered here and they're subject to regulations. We don't want to be ruled by global monopolies who they are. Because we all trusted them and they have let us down. They have let us down dramatically. And that's why in Australia too, you are having a fight against their digital monopoly powers, right, for media. For example, tomorrow, ET Now too wants to get advertising. You have to survive. You have to grow. We need ET. We need other, economic media too, TV channels. We need all of them. So people have a choice. The important thing in democracy, people should have the right to choice, and people should have the ability to exercise the choice by having multiple players. That's exactly what is happening. We should not ban Twitter for a very important reason. Twitter is registered in the United States as a democracy. Now, they may be biased against India. They may try to play political games. They may do everything else. Government should put its foot down to make sure there's equal access, but we should not ban them. But banning TikTok and others from China is very good for a simple reason. We don't know who is behind all the Chinese apps, and China is a closed system. They don't allow you to come inside. So I see no reason why we should allow another country which doesn't allow anybody else to go there to have access to our markets. That's a very good decision, but we should not ban Twitter.
Okay. Dr. Mohandas Pai, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us with your views.
Thank you.
We've seen this across sectors. When something picks up, you usually see many, many more come up. You saw it in the short video format. You've seen it in EdTech. Let's see if it happens in microblogging. The more players you have, the more competition you have, and it's good for consumers. On that note,
whoever comes up, ET now will be ET now, right? There'll be only ET now, right? Keep going.
I like that. It's a good note to take a short commercial break. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. On the other side, we've got another app, another startup, homegrown, looking to take on giants. This time, it's for your cloud storage. Stay tuned.